It was just another quiet morning at the small-town airport, where the sound of distant engines and chirping birds blended together. The place wasn't big, just 2 hangars, a tiny office building, and a row of old benches where travelers waited for connecting flights. Most people passed through without noticing the people who kept the airport running. The cleaners, the security guards, the mechanics, and the man who swept the floors every day before sunrise. His name was Joe Turner, and he had been the airport's janitor for almost 20 years. Joe's daughter, Emily, had been coming to the airport with him since she was a child. She loved watching the planes take off, their wings slicing through the clouds. While other kids played with dolls or video games, she played with small toy planes and old machine parts her father brought home from work. She would sit on the floor for hours, trying to fit metal pieces together, her fingers covered in oil and grease. Joe would laugh and tell her, "You've got your mother's brains and my stubbornness." That's a dangerous mix. Their home was small, a 2-room house near the airport's edge. At night, Emily could hear the distant hum of aircrafts passing above. She liked that sound. It made her feel connected to something bigger, like she belonged to the sky somehow. But dreams didn't come easy for someone like her. Her family didn't have much. Her mother had passed away when Emily was just 10, and Joe worked double shifts to keep food on the table. College was out of reach, and even though Emily was smart enough to become an engineer, she had no money for tuition. Still, she never let that stop her. After finishing high school, she started helping her father part-time at the airport, sweeping hangars, cleaning restrooms, and emptying trash bins. But whenever the mechanics worked on a plane, she would linger nearby, pretending to be busy sweeping while secretly watching every move they made. She learned how engines worked just by observing and asking questions. Some of the mechanics didn't mind her curiosity. They would explain small things to her or hand her a wrench to hold. Over time, she became good at understanding problems others couldn't. The airport staff respected her for her work ethic, though most people didn't realize how much she knew. To them, she was just the janitor's daughter, another young woman cleaning up after others. But Emily didn't care what people thought. She loved being around planes, the smell of jet fuel, and the quiet satisfaction that came when she fixed something broken. One morning, as the sun rose over the runway, Emily stood outside the hangar watching a small cargo plane prepare for takeoff. The sky was painted in soft orange and pink hues, and the ground shimmered from last night's rain. She sipped her coffee from a paper cup, thinking about her life and wondering if she'd ever get a real chance to do what she loved. Joe came up behind her, wiping his hands on an old rag. "You're up early again," he said with a grin. "Couldn't sleep," she replied. "Too much noise in my head. Still thinking about fixing planes?" he teased. "Always," she said, smiling faintly. "One day, Dad. I'll get there somehow." Joe nodded but didn't say anything. He didn't want to crush her hope, even though he knew how hard life could be for someone without a degree or connections. He had seen dreamers come and go at that airport, pilots who lost their jobs, mechanics replaced by younger workers, and travelers chasing something they couldn't find. But he had never seen anyone as determined as his daughter. By mid-morning, the small airport had grown busy. The air was filled with the sounds of engines, rolling luggage, and announcements echoing from the intercom. Emily was inside the hangar, wiping oil stains off the floor, when one of the ground staff called out to her. "Hey, Emily! You got a second?" She looked up, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Yeah, what's up?" "There's a private jet coming in. Something's wrong with it. Might need a cleanup or something once it lands." "Got it," she said, grabbing her gloves. A few minutes later, she stepped outside and saw the small jet making a rough landing. It wobbled slightly before stopping near the hangar. Even from a distance, she could tell something was off. The right engine was sputtering and letting out a faint trail of smoke. The pilot cut the power and the door opened slowly. A tall woman in a neat gray suit stepped out, her face showing irritation. She looked important, the kind of person who didn't have time for small-town problems. 2 men followed behind her, speaking into their phones. The woman looked around the empty tarmac with disbelief. "Where's your mechanic?" she asked one of the staff members sharply. Ma'am, our main mechanic's out sick today," the man said nervously. "We can have someone from the city come by tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow morning?" the woman repeated, her voice rising. "I can't wait that long. I have a meeting in Denver tonight." "This is ridiculous." Emily watched from a few feet away, pretending to check a toolbox but listening carefully. She could feel the tension in the air. The woman paced back and forth, frustrated, while the staff kept apologizing. Emily hesitated for a moment, then walked over. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said politely. "I know I'm not a certified mechanic, but I might be able to help. I've worked on small engines before." The woman turned to her, raising an eyebrow. You work here?" "Yes, ma'am. I help my father. He's the janitor." The woman sighed, clearly not impressed. "I appreciate your offer, but this is a private jet. It's not something you just tinker with." "I understand," Emily said, her voice calm. "But right now you don't have any other options. If you'll let me take a quick look, maybe I can at least figure out what's wrong. If not, I'll step back." There was a moment of silence. The woman looked around, seeing no mechanics, no one else stepping forward. Finally, she nodded. "Fine, 10 minutes. If you can't do anything, I'll wait for the professionals." Emily grabbed a flashlight and walked toward the jet. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her hands were steady. As she climbed up the small ladder to inspect the engine, she noticed her father watching from the hangar doorway. He didn't stop her. He just nodded as if giving silent permission. The metal felt warm under her fingers as she opened the panel and shined the light inside. She could smell burnt fuel and see residue near one of the regulators. Her mind started working fast, piecing together what she'd learned from watching mechanics all those years. She asked one of the ground crew to bring her a wrench set and a clean rag. As she worked, the woman stood nearby, arms crossed, watching closely but saying nothing. The wind picked up slightly, carrying the scent of jet fuel across the runway. Emily didn't notice the time passing. She was completely focused. Every screw, every sound of the engine told her a story. She realized the problem wasn't major. It was a clogged fuel line that had caused the pressure to drop. Carefully, she cleaned the part and replaced a loose fitting, using a temporary fix from spare equipment. After about an hour, she stepped down and said, "Try starting it now." The pilot got in, flipped a few switches, and the engine started smoothly. The sputtering was gone. The woman's eyes widened. She looked at Emily, clearly surprised. "You did that?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Emily said softly. "It should be safe to fly for now, but I'd recommend getting a full check once you reach your next stop." For a moment, the woman didn't say anything. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out some cash. "Take this. You just saved me from missing a very important deal." Emily shook her head. "That's kind of you, but I can't take it. I just wanted to help." The woman frowned slightly as if she wasn't used to people refusing money. "You're sure?" "Yes, ma'am." The woman studied her for another second, then gave a small smile. "Well, Emily, right? You've got a rare kind of confidence. Thank you." As the jet took off a few minutes later, Emily stood by the hangar, wiping her hands on her jeans. Her father walked over, a proud smile on his face. "Didn't I tell you?" he said. "You've got magic in those hands." Emily laughed softly, looking up at the sky as the jet disappeared into the clouds. She didn't know it then, but that small act of kindness was about to change her life forever. The next morning, the air at the small airport felt unusually still. The sun had just started to rise, spreading a pale orange glow across the runway. Dew glistened on the metal fences, and the faint hum of distant engines broke the silence. Emily arrived early as usual, carrying her small backpack and a thermos of coffee. She liked this quiet time before the day began, when she could hear her thoughts and feel the peace that came with watching the first plane lift into the sky. Her father, Joe, was already sweeping the hallway near the waiting lounge. He smiled when he saw her. "You're here early again," he said, leaning on his broom. "I couldn't sleep," she replied. "Kept thinking about that jet from yesterday." Joe chuckled softly. "You mean the one you fixed when everyone else just stood around?" Emily shrugged, trying to hide her smile. It wasn't a big deal, just a clogged line. "Anyone could have done it. Anyone, huh?" Joe said, giving her a playful look. "Funny how that lady didn't think anyone could do it when she first saw you." Emily laughed a little. "She probably thought I'd break something. She looked like the type who doesn't trust people easily." Joe nodded. "Well, she learned her lesson. Maybe she'll tell others about you." Emily shook her head. "Doubt it. People like her have busy lives. I'm sure she's already forgotten about it." She didn't know how wrong she was. By mid-morning, the airport started to fill up with travelers. Small commuter planes came and went, and the sound of wheels rolling over the tarmac filled the air. Emily was mopping the floor near the hangar when one of the ground crew members came running toward her. He looked flustered, his eyes wide. "Hey, Emily," he said, catching his breath. You're not going to believe this, and what is it? She asked. There's a convoy of black cars pulling in. Big ones, looks like a VIP or something. Emily frowned. Here, are you sure they're not lost? Nope, they're heading straight for the hangar. The front car's got a driver in a suit and… Wait, you're not going to believe who's in the back seat. Emily raised an eyebrow. Who? The lady from yesterday. The one with the jet. Before Emily could say anything, the sound of engines echoed through the lot. Everyone nearby turned their heads as a line of sleek black cars came rolling down the narrow road toward the hangar. The vehicles gleamed under the sunlight, looking completely out of place in the small-town airport. One by one, they stopped in front of the hangar doors. Out of the first car stepped the same woman from the day before, elegant, calm, and powerful. She wasn't wearing the same suit. Today she had on a light blue coat and sunglasses, but there was no mistaking her. Emily froze for a second, unsure whether to walk over or stay back. The woman removed her sunglasses and scanned the area, her sharp eyes landing on Emily almost immediately. There she is, she said, her voice clear and confident. The airport staff whispered among themselves, surprised by the sudden attention. Important people didn't usually come to places like this. The woman walked toward Emily, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. The air felt heavy with silence as everyone watched. When she stopped in front of her, Emily gave a nervous smile. Morning, ma'am, she said softly. Did something go wrong with the jet? The woman shook her head. No, quite the opposite, actually. That jet ran smoother than it has in months. You did a remarkable job. Emily's cheeks turned red. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I just wanted to help. The woman studied her for a moment before saying, You're too modest. Do you know how many certified mechanics couldn't find the same issue you spotted in less than an hour? That wasn't luck, that was talent. Emily didn't know what to say. Compliments from strangers made her uneasy, especially from someone so important. Thank you, ma'am. I've always liked working on engines. The woman smiled faintly. I can tell. You have that look. Someone who doesn't just see machines but understands them. By now, Joe had walked up, wiping his hands on his shirt. Is everything all right, ma'am? He asked politely. The woman turned to him with a warm smile. You must be her father. You raised quite a daughter. Yesterday, she saved me from missing one of the most important meetings of my career. Joe's face lit up with pride. She's always been good with machines. Ever since she was little, she's been taking things apart and putting them back together. I can believe that, the woman said. She looked back at Emily. When I flew off yesterday, I kept thinking about what happened. I meet a lot of people in my line of work, engineers, managers, executives, but it's rare to meet someone who does something out of pure kindness, without expecting anything back. That stayed with me. Emily felt her heart beating faster. I didn't do much, really. I just didn't want you to be stuck. The woman smiled gently. You did more than you realize. She gestured to one of her assistants, who stepped forward carrying a small folder. Before I go any further, I should probably introduce myself properly. My name is Catherine Hayes. I'm the owner of Horizon Air. For a moment, Emily thought she misheard. Horizon Air wasn't just any company. It was one of the most respected mid-sized airlines in the country. She had seen their planes on TV, sleek and painted in bright blue and silver. You're the owner? Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, Catherine replied with a calm nod. And I don't usually make unannounced visits like this, but something told me I needed to come back. The other airport staff looked stunned. Some of them stood frozen, not sure if they should bow or greet her. Joe took off his cap out of respect. I wanted to thank you properly, Catherine continued. You could have easily walked away yesterday, but you didn't. You stayed and helped a stranger. That kind of integrity is rare, and it deserves recognition. Emily looked down, embarrassed. I wasn't expecting anything, ma'am. I just wanted to make sure you were safe. Catherine nodded thoughtfully. That's exactly why I'm here. I came to see the person behind that heart and skill. She paused, then added, Tell me, Emily, what's stopping you from becoming an engineer? Emily hesitated. The question hit her harder than she expected. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Finally, she said quietly, Money. School's expensive, and my father works hard just to keep us going. I've always dreamed about it, but… She trailed off, her voice fading. Catherine nodded slowly, her eyes softening. I understand. I came from a working-class family, too. My father drove buses, and my mother worked nights at a diner. I know what it's like to have a dream that feels too far away. Joe listened quietly, his hands folded in front of him. He didn't interrupt. Catherine looked around at the modest hangar, the peeling paint, the old tools, the faint smell of oil. "You've got more potential than half the people I interview for high-level positions," she said finally. "You just need a door to open." Emily blinked, unsure where this was going. "A door?" Catherine smiled again, this time more warmly. "I'm here to open one for you." She handed Emily the folder her assistant had been holding. Inside was a printed letter, a company logo at the top, and a few official-looking forms. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she read the first line. It was a scholarship offer from Horizon Air, full tuition to a top aviation engineering program, plus a paid internship with the company once she started classes. Emily looked up, speechless. I don't understand." "Why me?" "Because you earned it," Catherine said simply. "I saw something yesterday I can't ignore. You've got a gift, Emily. You see problems differently. And I want people like you in my company, people who care." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, but she tried to blink them away. Joe stepped closer, putting a hand on her shoulder. "Ma'am," he said softly, "you have no idea what this means. She's been waiting for a chance like this her whole life." Catherine smiled kindly. "Then I'm glad I came back. Consider this an investment in someone who deserves it." Emily looked at the papers again, her hands shaking. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Catherine said with a gentle laugh. "That's all you have to do." Emily nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. "Yes, thank you. Thank you so much." Catherine reached out and shook her hand firmly. "You've got a bright future ahead. Don't waste it." The other staff clapped softly as Catherine turned to leave. Before getting back into her car, she looked over her shoulder and said, "Oh, and Emily, next time someone doubts you, remember yesterday. Remember what you did." As the cars pulled away, the airport felt different, warmer somehow, alive with quiet excitement. Joe turned to his daughter and hugged her tightly. "I told you, kid," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "One day someone would see what I see." Emily hugged him back, her eyes still on the road where the black cars disappeared into the horizon. She couldn't stop smiling, though her heart still raced with disbelief. The sky above shimmered with sunlight, and for the first time in her life, she didn't just dream about flying, she felt like she was already starting to. It had been 2 weeks since Catherine Hayes returned to the small airport and changed Emily's life forever. Yet every morning when Emily woke up, she still felt like it was all a dream. Sometimes she would take out the scholarship letter from her drawer and read it again, just to make sure it was real. The paper had the Horizon Air logo at the top, her name printed in bold letters, and Catherine's signature at the bottom. Each time she looked at it, her heart filled with a mix of joy and disbelief. Life at home had changed, though not in appearance. The same small house stood near the airport fence, the same worn-out furniture, the same kettle whistling in the morning. But there was something new in the air, hope. Her father, Joe, smiled more these days. He still worked long hours, but now when he looked at Emily, his eyes carried a quiet pride that words couldn't describe. One evening, Emily sat at the kitchen table with her father. The scholarship papers were spread out between them. Joe wore his reading glasses, squinting at the fine print. "So they're paying for everything?" he asked slowly, as if he couldn't believe it. "Everything," Emily said with a grin. "Tuition, books, and even housing. And when classes start, I'll have an internship at their main engineering facility." Joe leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "I don't know how she found you, kid, but I'm sure glad she did." Emily laughed softly. "I didn't find her. She found me, and I still don't know why." Joe looked at her, his expression gentle but serious. Maybe because people like her remember what it's like to be you, to have dreams that seem too big and chances that seem too small. Maybe she saw herself in you. Emily didn't respond right away. She thought about Catherine's calm face, her strong voice, and the way she'd said, "Don't waste it." It was strange how a stranger could see something in her that she'd almost stopped believing in. That night, Emily sat on the porch looking up at the sky. Planes blinked faintly as they crossed the stars. She wondered what it would feel like to work on those planes, to build something that flew higher than her own fears. For the first time, her dream didn't feel far away. It felt like it was calling her. A few days later, she received an official email from Horizon Air's education department. It included the enrollment details and a schedule for her internship orientation. She had to move to the city within a month. Her stomach twisted with excitement and nervousness. She had never lived anywhere else, and the thought of leaving her father and the only home she knew made her uneasy. When she told Joe about the move, he smiled, though his eyes looked a little sad. "It's time, kid. You've got wings now. You can't stay on the ground forever." "I'm going to miss you," she said quietly. "I'll miss you too," he replied, patting her hand. "But don't you dare waste this chance worrying about me. Go make something of yourself. That's all I ever wanted." On the morning she left, the whole airport seemed to notice. The staff gathered to wish her good luck. The manager gave her a firm handshake, and one of the older mechanics slipped a small wrench into her bag, saying, "A lucky tool for your first day." Emily laughed, promising she'd take good care of it. When the bus finally arrived, Joe hugged her tightly. "You make me proud, kid," he whispered. "I'll come back," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I promise." As the bus drove away, Emily pressed her forehead against the window, watching her father grow smaller in the distance until he disappeared completely. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "All right, let's do this." The city was loud and alive, nothing like the quiet airport she'd known all her life. Tall buildings lined the streets, and the air buzzed with car horns and chatter. Emily felt small but determined as she stepped into the Horizon Air Training Center for the first time. The facility was enormous. Bright glass walls, spotless floors, and aircraft parts everywhere. People walked briskly in uniforms, talking about flight systems and maintenance schedules. She could hardly believe she was part of this world now. A friendly woman at the reception greeted her. "You must be Emily Turner. Welcome to Horizon Air. We've been expecting you." Emily smiled nervously. "Thank you. It's my first day." The woman handed her a badge with her name on it. "You'll be starting with the engineering support team. They'll show you around." A tall man named Daniel met her in the hallway and gave her a tour of the facility. He had a kind face and a calm voice. "You're the one Miss Hayes talked about," he said. "She told us you have a good eye for engines. I think you'll fit right in." Emily blushed slightly. "I still have a lot to learn." "That's what we're here for," he said with a smile. "Come on, I'll introduce you to the team." The engineering bay was massive. Airplane engines, turbine parts, and tool benches filled the space. The air smelled of metal and machine oil, familiar, comforting smells. Daniel showed her where to store her things and introduced her to the other interns. Some looked curious, others polite. A few whispered quietly to each other, probably wondering who she was and how she'd gotten in. Throughout the day, Emily listened carefully, asking questions whenever she could. Her hands were steady, her eyes sharp. When someone struggled with a small engine assembly, she stepped forward to help, offering a simple suggestion that solved the problem in seconds. The other interns looked surprised. Daniel nodded approvingly. "You've got good instincts," he said. "Thank you," Emily replied, trying not to blush. After the shift, she went back to her small dorm room, exhausted but happy. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how far she'd come. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her father. "How's the big city treating you?" She smiled and typed back, "It's loud, but I'm learning so much already. I think you'd be proud." "I already am," he replied. The next few weeks were filled with challenges. Emily studied hard during the day and worked in the workshop in the evenings. Some nights she stayed late, tightening bolts or sketching out small design ideas in her notebook. She didn't have many friends yet, but she didn't mind. The engines were her friends. They made sense when nothing else did. One Friday afternoon, Catherine Hayes visited the training facility for an inspection. The moment Emily saw her, she froze for a second, unsure whether to approach her. Catherine spotted her right away and smiled. "Emily, I heard you've been doing excellent work." Emily smiled nervously. "I'm trying my best, ma'am." "I knew you would," Catherine said warmly. "How are you adjusting?" "It's a lot to take in," Emily admitted. "Everything's bigger and faster here. But I love it." "That's good," Catherine replied. "Keep learning. You remind me of myself when I first started out, curious, fearless, and a little overwhelmed." Emily laughed softly. "That's about right." Catherine's tone grew thoughtful. "You know, the best people in this business aren't just the ones who know how things work. They're the ones who care why they work. You have that. Never lose it." Emily nodded, feeling her confidence grow. "I won't." Before leaving, Catherine said, "When you're ready, I'd like to show you the main research division. There's a project coming up where we could use someone with your hands-on skill." "Really?" Emily asked, her eyes wide. Really? Catherine said with a smile. You've earned it. After she left, Emily stood in the workshop, heart racing. She couldn't believe how quickly her life was changing. Just months ago, she was cleaning floors, and now the owner of one of the biggest airlines was inviting her to join a research project. That night, as she walked back to her dorm, the city lights shimmered like stars reflected on the streets. She stopped at a small park bench and sat down, letting the cool breeze wash over her. She thought about her father, about that night she fixed the jet, about how everything had started with a single act of kindness. She smiled to herself. Maybe this is what flying feels like, she whispered. From that night on, Emily worked harder than ever. She wasn't just fixing engines now, she was building a future, one piece at a time. She knew the road ahead would be tough, but she also knew she wasn't alone. Somewhere out there, Catherine believed in her, and her father was cheering her on from home. For the first time, Emily didn't feel like the janitor's daughter. She felt like someone who belonged in the sky. The morning air in the city was cool and bright, filled with the faint hum of traffic and the sound of planes taking off from the distant airport. Emily had been working at Horizon Air's training facility for almost 6 months now, and every day still felt like something new. She had grown used to the routine, early mornings, long hours, and late nights spent studying engine blueprints and testing parts. But even with the long days, she loved every minute of it. The smell of jet fuel, the whirring of tools, and the steady rhythm of engines made her feel alive. Every week, she learned something new: how to read technical diagrams, how to assemble complex systems, how to solve small malfunctions before they became big problems. Her supervisors noticed how quickly she picked things up, and even the older mechanics had started to respect her. At first, some of them had doubted her. They thought she was just a lucky girl who got into the program because she knew the owner. But once they saw how serious she was, those doubts slowly faded away. One afternoon, as Emily was tightening bolts on a large jet turbine, her supervisor, Daniel, approached her with a clipboard in hand. "Got a minute?" he asked. Emily wiped her hands on a rag. "Sure, what's up?" "Miss Hayes is visiting tomorrow," he said. "She's bringing a few executives to look at our new testing area. She specifically asked if you'd be available to demonstrate one of the maintenance setups." Emily's eyes widened. "Me?" Daniel smiled. "Yes, you. Don't look so shocked. You've been doing great work and she's proud of it. She said she wants you to show them what you've been learning." Emily felt a mix of nerves and excitement. "I'll do my best." "That's all you ever do," Daniel said, patting her shoulder. "You'll be fine." That night, Emily stayed late at the workshop, checking and rechecking every detail. She wanted everything to go perfectly. She made sure the equipment was clean, the wires were neat, and the tools were organized in the right order. When she finally left, the streets outside were quiet and the city lights shimmered like stars. She walked back to her dorm with tired feet but a happy heart. The next morning came quickly. The facility buzzed with extra energy as everyone prepared for the visit. Floors were polished, displays were cleaned, and everyone wore their best uniforms. Emily arrived early, her hair tied back neatly, her name badge shining on her chest. She went through her notes one last time, repeating the steps in her head. By mid-morning, a convoy of black cars pulled into the facility. The doors opened, and Catherine Hayes stepped out, looking as elegant as ever in a navy blue coat. She was followed by a small group of people, board members, engineers, and investors. She smiled as soon as she saw Emily. "There's our star mechanic," she said warmly. Emily blushed. "Good morning, ma'am," Catherine nodded. "Morning, Emily. Ready to show us what you've been working on?" "Yes, ma'am," Emily said with a confident smile. The group gathered around as Emily began her demonstration. Her hands moved quickly but carefully as she explained each part of the turbine. She talked about how air pressure, fuel mix, and temperature work together to create thrust. She spoke in clear, simple words that made even the non-technical guests nod in understanding. When she finished, Catherine looked genuinely impressed. "You've done your homework," she said. Emily smiled. "I've had great teachers." The visitors applauded softly, and one of the engineers leaned over to Catherine. "She's a natural," he said quietly. Catherine nodded. "I told you so." After the tour, Catherine asked Emily to walk with her for a moment. They stepped outside onto a quiet balcony overlooking the runway. The wind carried the faint roar of a departing plane. "You've done very well," Catherine said. I'm proud of how far you've come in such a short time. Thank you, Emily said softly. I still have a lot to learn, though. We all do, Catherine replied. But there's something you can't teach. Passion. You have that. She paused, then added, I wanted to tell you this in person. There's a new research division opening at our main headquarters. They're looking for young engineers to join a special project, a hybrid engine we've been developing for years. I think you'd be perfect for it. Emily's eyes widened in surprise. Me, on a research project? Yes, Catherine said. It's not just about fixing things, it's about creating something new. Something that could change the way planes fly. I want you on that team. For a moment, Emily was speechless. She had dreamed of opportunities like this, but never thought they would come so soon. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Catherine said with a kind smile. You've earned it. Emily nodded, her voice trembling slightly. Yes, I'd be honored. Catherine smiled. Good. I'll have my office send you the details. You'll start next month. They stood quietly for a moment, watching a plane rise into the sky. Catherine turned to her and said, You know, the first time I met you, I saw something in your eyes, a quiet strength. You didn't just fix my jet that day. You reminded me why I love this business. People like you are the reason we keep moving forward. Emily felt a lump in her throat. Thank you, ma'am. That means a lot. Catherine nodded, then looked out at the runway again. Never let anyone make you feel small for where you came from. It's not where you start. It's what you do with the chance you're given. Later that evening, Emily called her father to tell him the news. He answered on the second ring, his voice tired but cheerful. Hey, kiddo, how's the big city? Dad, she said, barely able to contain her excitement. You won't believe this. Miss Hayes just offered me a position on a research team. They're developing a new engine design, and she wants me to be part of it. There was a long pause on the line before Joe spoke again. You're kidding. I'm serious, she said, laughing. Can you believe it? Joe let out a proud chuckle. I knew it. I knew it from the day you were little and took apart the radio just to see how it worked. I told your mother back then, this girl's going to build something one day. Emily's eyes softened. I wish she could see me now. She sees you, kid, Joe said quietly. She's up there smiling bigger than both of us. Emily felt her throat tighten. I hope so. You just keep doing what you're doing, Joe continued. Don't let anyone tell you what you can or can't do. You're proof that hard work and heart can take you anywhere. I will, Dad, she said, and I'll make sure you're there the day we test the new engine. I'll be there, Joe said proudly. Wouldn't miss it for the world. When the call ended, Emily sat on her bed, staring out the window. The city skyline shimmered with lights. She thought about how much had changed in such a short time, how one simple act of kindness had opened doors she never imagined. The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. Emily began studying advanced material design and flight dynamics. She stayed up late most nights, reviewing notes and sketches. The new project was a big step up, but she was ready for it. The day she moved to the main headquarters, Catherine greeted her personally. The new facility was massive, filled with engineers from around the world. The air buzzed with excitement and ambition. Catherine walked her through the research lab, explaining how the hybrid engine could make air travel cleaner and more efficient. This could change everything, Catherine said. And you're going to be part of it. Emily nodded, feeling a rush of determination. She wanted to make something that mattered not just for herself, but for her father, for the people who believed in her, and for everyone who ever thought they didn't stand a chance. As weeks turned into months, Emily worked side by side with top engineers, testing parts, adjusting designs, and solving problems that others couldn't. Her ideas started to get noticed. She wasn't the janitor's daughter anymore. She was an engineer with a purpose. One afternoon, Catherine visited the lab again. How's the testing going? She asked. Emily looked up from her desk, her face glowing with excitement. We just hit a new milestone. The engine ran for 12 hours straight without a single fault. Catherine smiled proudly. That's incredible. You've come a long way, Emily. Emily grinned. I couldn't have done it without your help. Catherine shook her head. No, you did this on your own. I just gave you a chance. You're the one who took it and turned it into something real. As the day ended, Emily stood by the window, watching a plane glide past the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of gold and pink, the same colors she used to watch from her hometown airport. She thought about her father sweeping the floors, about that broken jet, and about the woman who saw her potential when no one else did. She smiled softly to herself. Life had a funny way of turning small moments into something extraordinary, and deep down she knew this was only the beginning. The sound of the hangar doors opening echoed through the giant research facility. A soft morning breeze carried the scent of oil and fresh paint as the team gathered around the new prototype engine. Months of long nights, testing and reworking had finally led to this moment. Emily stood quietly near the front, wearing her blue jumpsuit and holding a small notebook, filled with sketches and notes. This was the day they would run the first full flight test of the hybrid engine, AAT project that had taken over a year to perfect. The idea was to create an engine that could run partly on clean fuel, reducing emissions and improving efficiency. It was a bold idea, something that many had said couldn't be done. But Catherine believed in it, and she believed in Emily. Catherine arrived just before the test began, dressed simply but elegantly, her eyes bright with excitement. She greeted each member of the team, then walked straight to Emily. "How's our masterpiece looking?" Catherine asked with a grin. Emily smiled nervously. "We're ready, ma'am. All systems checked twice. The data looks solid." "Good," Catherine said. "You've worked hard for this moment. Enjoy it." The engineers began moving into position. The massive jet engine gleamed under the bright lights of the hangar. As the countdown began, the room grew quiet. Emily's heart pounded as she watched the gauges on her screen. 10 seconds to ignition, someone called out. Emily took a deep breath, her hands slightly trembling. 3, 2, 1. Start sequence. The engine roared to life. A deep, steady hum filled the air, followed by the smooth rise of power. The sound was strong but clean, different from traditional engines. Everyone watched the readings closely. The temperature stayed stable, fuel flow balanced, and vibration levels were minimal. Emily's eyes widened as the numbers on the monitor stayed within perfect range. "It's holding steady," she shouted. The team broke into cheers, but Emily couldn't look away from the screen. She watched the data pour in, her mind racing with both relief and disbelief. After 10 minutes, the test shut down successfully. The hangar filled with applause. Catherine turned to Emily with a proud smile. "You did it." Emily shook her head, smiling through tears. "We did it." Later that day, after the celebration had quieted, Catherine and Emily sat in the observation room overlooking the runway. The setting sun cast golden light through the glass, making the moment feel even more unreal. "I remember the first day I met you," Catherine said softly. "You were covered in grease, standing by a broken jet, and yet you looked more confident than most pilots I know." Emily laughed. "I was nervous that day. I just didn't want to mess anything up." Catherine smiled. "And now you're helping build engines that will change the world. You've come a long way, Emily." Emily looked down, feeling both proud and humbled. "It still feels strange sometimes. I was just the janitor's daughter from a small town. I never thought I'd be here." Catherine turned to her. "You're here because you earned it. Hard work doesn't care where you come from." Emily nodded slowly, letting those words sink in. A few weeks later, news of the successful test spread quickly through the aviation world. Articles began to appear online about Horizon Air's breakthrough. One magazine even featured a picture of the team, with Emily standing proudly in the center holding her notepad. When the article reached her hometown, her father was the first to see it. He cut it out and framed it, placing it right above the small table in their living room. Every person who visited the airport saw it, and Joe couldn't help but tell them, "That's my girl." Back at headquarters, things were changing fast. The company had started planning for the next stage, testing the engine on an actual aircraft. It would take months of preparation, but it was the final step before introducing it to the market. Catherine called Emily into her office one afternoon. The large window behind her showed the runway and a jet taxiing in the distance. "I have something important to tell you," Catherine began. "You're being promoted to assistant project leader for the next phase." Emily blinked in surprise. "Assistant leader? Me?" "Yes," Catherine said. "You've earned it. The team looks up to you, and your ideas have been crucial to this project. It's time you step into a leadership role." Emily felt her heart skip. She thought about all the nights she'd stayed late, studying manuals, sketching designs, fixing small details that no one else noticed. All of it had led to this moment. "I'll do my best," she said firmly. Catherine smiled. That's all I ask. As the weeks went by, Emily found herself busier than ever. She led meetings, managed schedules, and made sure every part of the project stayed on track. It was challenging, but she loved it. The respect she had earned from her coworkers was genuine. They didn't see her as just a newcomer anymore. She was one of them, part of something big. One evening, after a long day of testing, she was walking across the hangar when she saw her father standing near the entrance. He looked slightly out of place in his old jacket and worn shoes, but his eyes were glowing with pride. "Dad!" Emily ran up and hugged him tightly. Joe chuckled. "You think I'd miss this? Catherine invited me to see the prototype myself." Emily grinned. "It's not much to look at yet. But wait until you hear it run," Joe smiled. "You always did like making noise," they both laughed. Emily led him around, showing him the parts, the computers, and the control stations. Joe listened carefully, even if half of what she said went over his head. He was just happy to see his daughter living her dream. At one point, he looked around and said softly, "You know your mother would have loved this. She always said you'd do something that made people look up to you." Emily nodded, her eyes glistening. "I think about her a lot. She's part of why I keep pushing." Joe put his arm around her shoulder. "And you've made her proud, kiddo. You've made all of us proud." That night, Emily and Joe had dinner with Catherine at a small restaurant near the airport. The conversation flowed easily. Stories about old planes, funny mistakes from the early days, and dreams for the future. At one point, Catherine looked at Joe and said, "You raised a remarkable young woman." Joe smiled shyly. "I just told her to never give up." "Guess she listened." Emily laughed. "He told me that every time I failed a test." Catherine chuckled. It worked. A few days later, the first test flight was scheduled. The entire company gathered to watch. The plane, equipped with the new hybrid engines, sat on the runway glistening under the morning sun. Emily and her team checked the final readings. Everything was perfect. When the pilot received clearance, the engine started with a deep, steady hum. The plane began to move, slowly at first, then faster. Within seconds, it lifted gracefully into the sky. Cheers erupted around the runway. Emily watched, her eyes wide and full of emotion. She could hardly breathe as the plane climbed higher, its engines running smoother than ever. It circled above, then returned for a perfect landing. When the doors opened, the pilot stepped out, grinning. "Flawless," he said. "Absolutely flawless." Emily felt tears fill her eyes. She turned to her team, to Catherine, and finally to her father, who had been standing quietly to the side. He gave her a thumbs up, his smile wide and proud. Catherine placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. "You've done something incredible. This is just the beginning, you know. The world's going to change because of this." Emily nodded, still overwhelmed. "I just wanted to fix things, make them better. I never thought it would go this far." "That's exactly why it did," Catherine said. "You cared more about the work than the credit. That's what makes great people." That evening, when the celebration ended and most people had gone home, Emily stayed behind at the hangar. The plane sat silently in the golden glow of the sunset. She walked around it slowly, her fingers brushing the smooth metal. She thought about everything that had led her here: the janitor's closet, the broken-down jet, the woman who believed in her, and the countless nights she had worked until her eyes burned. She looked up at the sky and whispered softly, "We did it." For the first time in her life, she didn't feel small or uncertain. She felt ready for whatever came next. As the lights in the hangar flickered off one by one, Emily walked out into the quiet night, her heart full of peace. The sound of a distant plane echoed above her, a reminder that the sky was no longer just something to dream about. It was where she belonged. The months that followed the first successful flight were some of the busiest and most rewarding days of Emily's life. The hybrid engine project had become a sensation in the aviation world. Newspapers wrote about it, magazines featured it, and companies from across the world wanted to learn how Horizon Air had managed to do what others had only dreamed of. For Emily, it all still felt unreal. Every time she saw a photo of the plane she helped build, her heart filled with a quiet kind of pride that words couldn't describe. Life at the headquarters changed too. The research facility buzzed with new faces: engineers, investors, and technicians, all wanting to be part of the next phase. Emily's responsibilities grew, but she handled them with the same steady focus that had gotten her this far. She never forgot where she came from or how it all began, with a broken-down jet and a woman who believed in her. One cool morning, as she was reviewing new test data, she received an email from Catherine's office asking her to come upstairs. It was short and formal, just a simple message, meeting at 10 a.m., important update. Emily walked into Catherine's office right on time. Catherine was standing near the window looking out at the runway, her hands resting gently on the edge of the desk. When she turned, her eyes held a warmth that made Emily instantly relax. "Come in," Catherine said. "I've been waiting to talk to you." Emily smiled. "Is everything all right?" Catherine nodded. "More than all right. Sit down, please." Emily took a seat, trying to read Catherine's expression. "I just came from a board meeting," Catherine began. "The company has officially approved the production phase for our new hybrid engine. We're going to start building commercial models within the next year." Emily's face lit up. "That's incredible news." "It is," Catherine said, smiling. "And I have more good news. The board has decided to form a new division, a specialized branch dedicated to future technologies. I want you to lead it." For a moment, Emily just stared at her, unsure if she'd heard correctly. "Lead it? Me?" "Yes," Catherine said. "You've proven yourself again and again. You understand the work, the people, and most importantly, the purpose behind it. You're not just a good engineer, you're a leader." Emily felt her heart race. She thought about how not long ago, she was cleaning hangar floors and fixing small engines just to help her father pay bills. And now she was being asked to lead an entire division of one of the biggest aviation companies in the world. "I don't know what to say," Emily whispered. "Say yes," Catherine said with a warm smile. "You've earned it." Tears stung the corners of Emily's eyes. "Yes, of course, yes. Thank you for believing in me." "I believed in you," Catherine said softly. "Because you believed in yourself. Even when things were hard, that kind of strength can't be taught." The news spread through the facility quickly. Everyone congratulated her. Technicians, engineers, even the cleaning staff who remembered her early days. It felt like the whole place had become one big family celebrating her success. But Emily stayed humble. She didn't see herself as special. She just wanted to do good work, the kind that made people's lives better. That weekend, Emily decided to visit her hometown. It had been a while since she'd gone back, and she missed the quiet streets, the old diner where she and her dad used to eat, and the smell of jet fuel that always hung near the small airport. When she arrived, her father was waiting outside their house, waving from the porch. He looked older, but his smile was the same, proud and kind. "Look at you," he said as she got out of the car. "Big boss now, huh?" Emily laughed and hugged him. Something like that. They spent the day together walking around town. People stopped her everywhere they went. Old neighbors congratulated her. Kids asked questions about airplanes, and even her former teachers smiled when they saw her. The girl who once fixed small engines in her father's workshop had become someone the whole town looked up to. Later, they went to the airport where her father still worked part-time. The same hangar stood there, a little older and rustier now. Emily walked inside and looked around. Memories flooding back, the sound of tools clinking, the smell of grease, and the feeling of determination that had started everything. Her father stood beside her. "You know, this place hasn't changed much," he said quietly. Emily smiled. "It doesn't need to. This is where everything began." He nodded. "I remember the day that fancy jet broke down here. You looked so serious when you went over to help that woman." Emily laughed softly. "I didn't even know who she was. I just wanted to fix it." "And look where that got you," Joe said proudly. "Sometimes doing what's right without expecting anything back brings you more than you could ever imagine." They stood there in silence for a while, both lost in thought. The next morning, before she left town, Emily stopped by the small cafe near the highway. It was quiet, with the smell of coffee and fresh bread filling the air. She sat by the window watching a plane fly high above, its white trail fading into the blue sky. She smiled to herself, thinking about how far she had come and how much more there was still to do. Back at the company, Emily threw herself into her new role. Leading a division was not easy. There were meetings, presentations, and tough decisions every day. But she never lost her focus. She made sure to treat everyone with respect, from the senior engineers to the janitors who cleaned the hangars. She knew better than anyone that greatness could come from anywhere. Under her leadership, the new division thrived. They began developing advanced flight systems, safety upgrades, and eco-friendly designs that inspired engineers across the industry. Her name started appearing in articles and interviews, but she always redirected the praise toward her team. One afternoon, months later, Catherine invited Emily to her office again. The two women sat together over coffee, looking out at the bustling runway below. "You've done incredible work, Emily," Catherine said. "The board has been more than impressed. But I have something else to share." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I've decided to retire next year. I've been running Horizon Air for a long time, and it's time for me to step back. The board and I have agreed on my successor. I'd like it to be you." Emily froze. "Me, the head of Horizon Air?" "Yes," Catherine said simply. "You have the knowledge, the passion, and the vision. You understand what this company stands for, and I know you'll take it to even greater heights." Emily's eyes widened, her heart pounding. I don't know if I'm ready for that." Catherine smiled gently. "You said the same thing when I asked you to lead your first team. And look how that turned out." Emily laughed softly, tears threatening to fall. "You really think I can do it?" "I know you can," Catherine said firmly. "This company needs someone who remembers what it's like to start at the bottom. Someone who never forgets that every person here matters." Emily nodded slowly, her throat tight with emotion. "If you believe in me, I'll do it." "I do," Catherine said. "Always have." When the announcement was made months later, the entire company erupted in applause. Reporters called it the most inspiring leadership transition in aviation history. The janitor's daughter was now the head of one of the world's leading airlines, but Emily didn't care much about the titles or the attention. She cared about the work, about innovation, teamwork, and giving chances to people who just needed someone to believe in them. On her first official day as the company's new head, she walked into the main hangar where her journey had started. The same tools, the same smell, the same sense of wonder filled the air. She placed her hand on the side of a jet and smiled. "Let's keep building," she whispered to herself. That afternoon, she gave her first speech to the employees. She stood on a small stage in front of hundreds of faces. Some she'd worked beside for years, others new and eager. Her voice was steady and warm. "I started in a small hangar," she said. "I didn't come from wealth or privilege. I just loved to fix things. But what I learned is that life isn't about where you start. It's about what you do with the chances you're given. Someone once believed in me when I least expected it, and that belief changed everything. Now it's our job to do the same for others, to build not just planes but opportunities." The crowd rose in applause. Some people wiped away tears. Catherine, standing in the front row, smiled with pride. That night, after everyone had left, Emily walked alone along the runway. The lights glowed softly, and the wind carried the distant hum of engines. She thought of her father, her mother, and that one moment that had changed her life forever, the day she fixed a stranger's broken jet. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you." And as a plane lifted gracefully into the sky, its engines shining in the moonlight, Emily knew one thing for certain. The sky had never been the limit. It had only been the beginning.